Throughout the development of the patch, a single comp has continuously risen in all of the tier lists due to its consistency at securing top 4 placements, and with the acceleration of the tempo in the meta, is even possible to go for winouts. My name is Boris, and today we'll be looking at the Corki Riven comp and then jumping in a VOD review with a pro. Quickly about the comp, we are ideally playing from a tempo spot around some form of an econ engine, primordial or timebreaker, or both, since their traits match so nicely, are amazing. We are looking to be slamming AD items. Ideally we prio Corki items over Riven, so playing around that Ezreal or Gnar is quite neat, but since Briar is so amazing at carrying these Riven items, that's going to work quite sufficient as well. Then we are continuously playing our strongest board and investing our augment picks into items or emblems or combat power, and spiking our board on level 8 on 4-2. Do not be considering going to level 9 without that Rammus and ideally Corki upgraded, but Riven is able to find as well if you have her itemized. Then we're going to be evaluating if we even need to be going for level 9, especially if we're playing from very far ahead. We might be in a spot that we are able to secure a 3-star forecast. Obviously watch out for the pings coming in, but this comp is so great at doing so since we are playing around 4 forecasts that are not greatly contested. But if you see that lobby might be vigilant or someone is playing around one of the other units, then pushing to level 9 and capping around Bard and dropping the Poppy for the Shen is going to be your best play. Rast can be a temporary slot in as well, and if you're lucky enough to find that Elder Dragon, then dropping the Mighty Mech is going to be quite great as well. Regarding our positioning, we want to be positioning Rammus in front of the enemy carries. He is the true solo frontliner pretty much of the comp. And then we have Corki and Riven on the same side. I would advise moving Riven to the 3rd or 4th slot, especially if you're facing those Yi comps. The best success I have found is when we are able to proc the Master Yi's Edge of Night quite early on and then retarget on him to burst him down and secure our wins in that way. And make sure that your Bard is positioned in such a way that he's going to be giving the Meeple buff to your Corki and Rammus as the primary two. The last unit does not matter. Other things to note regarding the comp is absolutely amazing at utilizing emblems. Rogue emblem on Corki is quite great, especially with Master Yi running around having that extra reset, as we simply do not know how his retargeting sometimes works, is very nice. Timebreaker should not be shied away from at all, providing you a little bit early econ, and the emblem is quite decent in the early game, providing the raw health, and then you're able to cap around 3 and do not be sleeping on 4 Timebreaker as the buff is absolutely insane. Bastion emblem allows us to keep the Poppy around, and then capping around 4 Bastion, simply a free +1. Voyager emblem, same free +1. Brawler emblem allows us to be slotting in a Pantheon and having 2 Brawler in as well instead of that Mighty Mech. With a Meeple emblem, we are going to be able to reach our 7 Meeple threshold earlier on, but we generally want to be dropping in this comp down to 5 Meeple. Same goes for the level 8 roll down. You're fine to be slotting in 7 Meeple temporarily, print some of the upgrades that you're looking out for, and then drop down to 5 Meeple as the unit quality of 7 Meeple is simply too low. For our itemization, we're going to have that built-in crit on the Corki through the Fate Weaver buff, therefore we're looking to give him damage amp, a little bit of extra crit synergy and pure AD. This is best achieved through Striker's Flail, Last Whisper and Deathblade combo. Since we want to be having pure tank items in Rammus, the Last Whisper here is very nice. If we're simply not able to make it, we can substitute one of these items with Giant Slayer Sojin. IE is also completely fine even though we have that built-in crick. And blue buff also seems to be working quite nice on him, especially when you have that Deathblade, further giving him even more AD. Riven is going to using your standard bruiser items, BT, Sterex and Titans. You can substitute with one of these with Giant Slayer, QSSS or Edge of Night is completely fine. Just make sure she has some AD and is in that AD form. We ideally do not have her in the AP form, as we're not going to be prioritizing making that void staff. The Bard items are only very last afterthought for ourselves. Rammus, since he's the shining tank of the comp, great user of the Stoneplate, and it's going to be a very nice early game tempo item slam as well. Otherwise, he absolutely loves Bramble Vest, since his ability is going to be scaling off armor and some form of mana item to be casting a little early on. You can even double down on these mana items. Protector's Vow being the better one, since it has a little bit of an AD in it. For the artifacts, Corki is great at utilizing Collector, and Fishbone seems to be performing quite well as well, but Collector is going to be having that crit synergy right there and print you a little bit of an extra gold as well throughout the game. For Riven, Infinity Force, Death Defiance, are also great, and Evelyn seems to be doing decent in stats, but my guess is that's most likely coming from the tempo spot around some early Belveth, and then simply identifying that you're not in a reroll spot to do so. Well, for Rammus, Sorakas for a little more durability and light shield, especially if you're making these armor and magic resist items, is going to be great. As mentioned, we're going to be utilizing our augment picks on the item augments or emblem augments or some strong combat augments that we're able to identify. Anything that further empowers our Riven and Quirky or simply makes up for a little bit lack of a frontline on our part is going to do good. But do not shy away from econ. If you're identifying that you're going on a mixed streak around a strong board, then you're going to be wanting to look out for that econ, as we want to be securing our rounds on stage 4, as this is where this comp is going to be absolutely shining. And another augment to note is the Invader Z, especially have that Meeple emblem, slot that on him, and this guy is going to be pumping out clones at an incredible pace. For our god selection, Echo is probably offering us through the anomaly the best tank item, otherwise slotting it on Riven and then on Bard is going to be your choices. I would shy away from putting it on Quirky, simply the buff is not that strong. Otherwise, Kale for extra item tempo, and then we can use one of our augment picks on some form of combat augment or econ if you're not finding necessity. While on the flip side, Arda is going to be able to bridge that econ gap for ourselves as we are investing our augment picks into items and combat power. As usual, this cheat sheet is going to be available in the link down below along my meta read sheet, where you can find all the cheat sheets I have made. And now let's jump in the game with a pro. For our board review, we are going to be jumping in game with Shoma, who is a high NA Challenger player, also has participated in the regionals and came in 7th place in the Box Bootcamp. We are playing in a Kale and Echo God game and starting out with a Poppy already. Obviously knowing where this is going to be leading, this could be one of the units we are interested in playing around if we're able to string together some form of a strong Bastion frontline as well. Going to be obviously right now already fielding our rogue units right there. Possibility for me playing into that Briar reroll right there, which we have the Briti, and Briar is going to be one of the most easiest ways how we can transition into those Riven items. Getting a Primordial pair, we would ideally want to see that Rek'Sai right away as a possibility to start printing that extra gold. We have a possibility for going for a win streak opener, could hold on to this talent here as well if we wanted to. He's going to budge to also hold onto this Lysandra too as a potential. We definitely have a way to be playing for a strong board, and we have an immediate slam in form of a BT if we wanted to go for it. Therefore, that's going to impact our augment choice. Booster pack is generally I would consider a weak econ augment on 2-1, as it's pretty much 10 gold. Now, it could provide you some direction with the 3 cost it gives, but just compare it to 1, 2, 3s, and the difference is not that large. Blood Offering is... we do not really be wanting this. This is not the strongest of the Omnivamp outings for either of the melee comps, and we already have a single BT to be slamming right here. That would force us to slam a GS, which would be nice to have 2 items, but I wouldn't be too excited about it. Sunfire board can gain quite a lot of value and sort that anti-heal for you right away, but we would ideally be looking for a strong item augment right away, or better econ augment is a possibility. Rolling past the Steadfast Augment as well, as we don't have an option to stack it, and it's also on the little bit of a weaker side. Legion of Threes is great in giving direction, plus the emblems right from the start can provide you with some strong tempo through the items, plus this buff is quite significant, especially in stage 2. And since our encounter is the Talon one, we're going to be getting extra rerolls, so quite interesting to see how we're going to be navigating this augment selection. Electro Charge is quite strong for the frontline comps. Well, aura farming is something that I'm not too keen about, since you are going to be in the little bit of delayed spot, but if you have a strong board, this can actually get you and provide you a clear direction. We're currently not that strong on the direction department. Calculated losses, amazing econ augment, but you have to vary if there's going to be players playing open, and we have a potential for strong board. So it seems that he's probably debating between Legion of Threes and the aura farming. Legion of Threes best generally played into the where you got reroll comp, since you have so many 3 costs to buff. But we're going to be getting Bard right away, so that's going to be locking in the direction we're going to be playing. Do not need to be slamming the BT for this fight, as I think he believes that he's just going to be winning nonetheless, having to make these informed decisions. I particularly like reviewing these games where we have the extra augment rerolls. As a fun fact, it was noted that we are generally very bad at picking augments, and somehow... I do not know exactly what the stat was, but I believe it was Mordor who said it, that we pick the war, like not the optimal augment in a spot whenever we're faced with multiple choices, with extra choices through these extra rerolls. Therefore, it's best to learn for the pros which augments they decide to default, how they change their priorities when they evaluate those extra 2 rerolls. Knowing your outs was potential other augments you could be hitting is quite valuable. We have made a Cho'Gath, so that's going to be our next in right away, having that talent pair still to sit on, and we are definitely in a great spot right now, picking up 2 wins. Any win that we can pick up, we see that there's a calculated loss player right there, so that's going to be another win that we should be securing for ourselves. But there are some other strong boards in the lobby. This is, I believe, late game scaling. I don't think this is early learnings, but also having to go on for that Teemo there with the Guardbreaker Slam is going to give them a little bit of an edge. We are on the other side, so that Bright doesn't get there. 1 4-hour God selection. This craftsmanship thing, I believe, is just an instant pick. You get constant reforgers, you farm extra gold, you have the way to fix your items. Divine Intervention would in some form play in that a plan that we're probably going to be losing at least starting from here, but the rod is not going to be that valuable, and these chains we can use for our Rammus items. We can make a Titans out of it, we can make a Stoneplate Slam immediately if we wanted to be strong right away as well. Definitely many ways we can use it, and the craftsmanship is just absolutely insane. Yeah, debate between the Rogue and the Maokai. Maokai would perhaps give the strongest board right away, but the Rogue is going to be a default option that we can opt to go for, as still playing for that potential out of hitting 3 Primordial as our econ. So let's see if we're going to be going for that Gargoyle Slam or the Titans right away. We are playing in the Bard, so we have to be going in consideration of also having to make Bard items, so definitely extra items are something that we want to be looking out for forever we are faced with another augment selections. Queuing into Darth Noob here, the world champ, with an extremely strong stage 2 board, perhaps playing into the Turgot reroll with the Cluttered Mind right there. So we are going now on a 2 loss. Any win that we can take and any amount of units that we can kill is going to be generally strong, as we are playing a gold augment down. And the reason why I'm not too fancy on this augment right now is due to the fact that, I mean, the water farming is due to the fact that simply it's quite a delayed value, and unless you're going to be able to capitalize on a lot of weaker players, you're going to be generally at 1 life, and it's not going to be as strong at stabilizing you onto that 4-3. It's also interesting that we opted to not slam the BT at all, not to go for the Titans, so perhaps he seems that he's meticulously prioritizing having the quirky items sorted out, and then some form of Bard items, and then on the Riven we could be just tossing anything. Not wanting to commit, and it did not seem that our fights are going to be making any difference. The item slam perhaps. Interesting way, we know that we hovered the Gargoyles right there as a potential. Picking up the Kaisa, which is going to be a great unit into this stage, and we do get a single anvil, so going to be leveling here, slotting that in right away. Still debating why we opted to not simply slam the items. I know I sometimes underslam at these kind of spots. Going to be going for the Shojin Last Whisper that we're going to be transitioning on that guys on the Talon, okay? Talon, yeah, it's quite nice on the Talon. Talon can definitely scam you some fights, and with the Shojins he's going to get that 2 auto attack cast. Easy pickings right here against the Teemo reroll from Emily Wang. Definitely some notable names in the lobby. And our next augment selection, we are being faced with Exiles. Kind of hard to position. We have that stone plate as well, so we wouldn't be getting maximum value out of it, so it's going to be definitely hard to be playing around that. I would assume we're going to be rerolling that. Second wind is a strong frontline option, could provide you with a little bit extra stall. Econ, I do not think we're exactly in that large of lookout for Econ. Obviously we'll want to hard stabilize on stage 4, but this is going to be about 20 golden form of Econ. Could be debatable. I would perhaps default second win, but the Epoch pluses are currently being quite strong. Definitely rolling that Exiles right away. Jeweled Lotus, we're going to be possibly, most likely, playing around the Fate Weaver at some point for our core key. Driven can use crit, alright. Bard can use it as well, but we're taking combat here would want us to be make as strong as possible. This is where you're faced with so many options and decisions. Too tanky is not something that we're definitely not going to be picking right now. Charge transfer, generally greater in these single target new comps. Now the Quirky has the big missile which it could be used for, but I don't think it's that great on the Bard or the Riven itself. So it seems he's defaulting Jeweled Lotus here, which is a great pick. Arcane Victory going for the reroll right there, and just picking up the Jeweled Lotus since we already have a Last Whisper Slam is going to be providing some more value at the moment. And if still going to be going with the talent carry for now. Now the talent should start falling off at some point whenever these players are starting to upgrade their backliners. Going to be a little bit harder to scam these fights. Not also pushing our levels that aggressively since we want to be making econ, and we have accepted that we are most likely going to be losing at this point. Not even feel I would believe that the Maokai here would make the stronger board anyhow, but perhaps the single star Maokai is not that strong due to him having the passive scaling from his max HP still. And we definitely want to be keeping the Cho'Gath around, obviously, for our Darkscar buff right now. Into, I believe that, was that a quirky? Yeah, the receiver, another quirky, so the net they're playing into Z. I am not sure what this picture is. It seems like an Isis right there. For our next god selection, the Blessing of Speed could be quite nice, but I believe we want a little bit more items. Having the Crown Guard option right here is quite nice. Again, we can use quite a lot of these chains. Rods, the Bard item that right away we could be sorting out. The Glove, also quite neat to synergize with the Jode Lotus. We could be looking most likely at the Striker Slam right now. But I believe the two components here are just simply going to be more valuable since we want to have those units itemized whenever we're going to be spiking. There's no use in getting a 2-star Bard if we cannot have some items on him. And the thing to note about Bard, he's completely fine without extra mana items since he can just nuke. And speaking of Bard, I'm not exactly sure where he's gone this round, but hopefully he's going to be coming back. But yeah, if you have two conduit, Bard is completely fine to be just going for that extra nuke. He's going to be able to clear up those big front lines with receiving that extra damage jump on them. But we're going to be continuing our loss here. Bard is coming back, but Construct a Companion, the Dart Noob has lost his tempo spot, but seems to be he's going to be going for that Primordial reroll, most likely judging from his bench. Although no, he had a cluttered mind, so he's just probably holding onto these units to delay another player. Going to be interesting to see what his board ends up with. A Cho'Gath 3 could be some form of Darkstar flex, but I don't think he had the emblem, so it's going to be interesting again. This is early learnings right here for that Twisted Fate reroll. Don't have that strong on the item front, but since they have rolled down, the G2 double is going to be picking up a win. Yeah, definitely very strong lobby with Dart Noob, Double, Wang, impostering between them, Kai Wang, Arctics, and obviously one player in streamer mode. Able to, we have that option to go going for the Kaisa pair, but I would assume that we're probably not going to be picking it up since we might not just simply make it. We are going to be transitioning off her quite soon enough. Now we have an open glove, so I would assume, yeah, that becomes a striker's fill right there, and we have the open tier as Ramos loves a single mana item, and in the worst case we can still be making mana items for that Bard. It's not that bad at all. Still have our Reforger, so we have an option. We have been playing around with our Comet Squad quite well. Did not exactly have the need for the extra econ to be pushing right away, but might want a little bit that juice into this stage for our last augment selection. The Staffsmith could just sort our Bard items right away, and it's generally a very strong augment. It's just giving you 2 raw items right away. Ascension is a decent combat option. The Scribbner Killer is also quite neat in this comp. Giant Slayers can be used both by Corki. Bard can use them fine, even though he has that built-in amp, and Riven is also quite fine as a user. But I believe leading just Staffsmith here simply through the augment's value is going to be quite good. Kahuna, absolutely insane into this Master Yi comp. Quite fine also in the Primordial comp, but that's not exactly what we're playing, so going to get may the Force be with you. That's your Darkstar potential. We have no use for this gen. We don't have that for money forecast either. Clockwork Isolation simply a little bit on the lower side on power wise. Crash Test Dummies again a little bit weaker, but decent combat option, especially if you're able to go for the burst comps. If you go for burst comps, getting that early stun so you can run over them is going to be quite neat. Do get a Rage Blade and a Morello, so thankfully we have these Reforgers to be able to flip them. GA is something that we could be holding on, but we can see how poor we actually are. Even though we went on a 5 loss here, having that mixed streak while still having a quite expensive of a board in the earlier stages has cost us dearly, but hopefully we're able to find at least a single star copies, getting that Corki pair already as well. Going to be going for more Reforges, simply not exactly the things we're looking for, but okay, we hit the GS, now we have a Rabadons as well, so our last component can become ideally some form of a frontline item. But yeah, did not hit those Primordials, did not hit those time breakers. So we're going to be slotting in 7 meeple right away as this bard comes online, and hopefully just being able to have a stall long enough in order to print ideally one of our 4 quests, right? But have to be very... Now, another thing you have to know, this Hex does disappear when you fly away. Now, could be an option that we print a 1 cost, as the printing completing is going to give you a little bit of an extra gold. Otherwise, we can obviously put in a higher cost unit and start saving up those prints, but he seems to be going for a single cost print. Cash flow, a little bit of delayed value. I do not think we can exactly use... I mean, it would become a void staff, but I think this adaptive helm here right away is quite nice, and that we can just simply use the extra open tier for a void staff if we wanted to. So yeah, you can see we get a couple of gold since the talent print completed there. Now just going to be digging, trying to stabilize our board, as we're still not exactly on the most stable, right? They're able to find Corky too, so now we just simply have to hope for the Rammus. Scouted around, did not exactly see, but I think there still was one player who was leaning into this line, so I have to be wary of them. Into Vex 1, Karma 2, the more of some form of an AP flex around this with a Darkstar emblem. So Kai Wang here, hoping that he could be stable on then try to get to that 9 to cap around that Jin. But definitely these 3-cost rerolls have hit quite early, so they're going to be a prominent threat. We are simply only on 2 lives at this point, so we are opting that we'll still have to roll, but managing our econ here, staying on 10 gold to not completely roll to 0, as we do not see a Rammus pair just yet. If we saw a pair, probably could be the considering rolling it from fully down, but thankfully we have enough damage against some of these players to be able to burst through them, even though the Rammus is not that durable just yet, and we're still solo frontlining him in this way. Now, for our slots, we are not exactly even playing around the ribbon at this point, but I would imagine that once we probably at some point we're going to be dropping out of this 7 meeple, simply dropping the Veigar right there and then transitioning to some other form of board. So what would we be exactly looking for? Perhaps the Void Staff? Or some form of ribbon items could be completely fine, just to simply toss them onto the Corky for now. Able to find the Riven now, only did not even, I think, see her before, and we are on the Rammus pair. Finally able to find that Rammus too. So going for the blue buff, that's probably going to be going on to the Bard then. Should be quite sufficient. Blue buff and Jeweled Gauntlet. Obviously a little bit redundancy with the... Alright, so a little bit of redundancy with the Jeweled Lotus we have there, but going to be tossing the items on the Fizz right now, since, well, we still dropped out the 7 meeple, but we still have it's an upgraded unit. 9 gold is going to be stronger than 4 gold, and we have the meeple buff for him, so he's simply going to be able to hold these items a little bit better than, I believe, the Riven right now, and allows us to go for this particular itemization on to the Bard. Nicely recognized that this is going to be making the strongest board. Tough turn right there, and we did not want to be rolling on Kale too much, obviously, since we were in such a dire situation to still be hitting our board. But now hopefully we should be stable enough to make our way to level 9. We have that 2-star Bard right there, so that's going to be edge over the rest of the lobby, who the tempo seems to have picked up quite significantly onto the stage 4, so I do not think there's going to be that many players who are able to agree to go to 9. One of the Darkstar players made it to level 9, I believe, so they're going to be becoming a threat right now. We're rolling right here for potential up. Are we rolling for this Ribbon too, specifically? Since we passed up on the mechs as well as a possibility, slotting in that Fate Weaver we have for the Corky, obviously wanting to get these crits with these crit items that we've built. Able to break the front line of Kai Wang and pick up a crucial win right now that allows us to not lock the shop and pick up the Riven too. So now we could be considering moving our items around. Hodge should be decent, just a pairing with our fully crit up and survivability onto this Riven. Obviously AP Riven, from all the stats that I've looked, seems to be a weaker of the options, but nonetheless sometimes you just have to go for this and you have to make your best out of your items, and his itemization has worked out quite neatly. She's also quite decent at applying the Morello from the looks of it, with the sword splash that she does from the League of Legends. You should know the ability probably. Now we are just probably going to be sitting onto this board and hopefully able to pick up a win here, as we're very closing on to top 4. So seems Darth Noob still tried to go for the Fast Knight, found the May the Force be with you, so definitely that allowed him to stabilize the board right there with the tempo that the probably the Constructed Companion was a consideration as a tempo play, finding that Chotri, but it didn't exactly work out. Into this Lulu reload right there, and man, this thing is quite strong if you're able to get it fully online, but thankfully we dropped to 3 lives only and able to pick up that top 4. Now, are we going to be seeing a dragon coming in? Could just be dropping that Meepsy for him. As we're not going to be simply playing into these Voyagers 4, and now we do get a Dragon Prince, so we do high roll that. That unit should definitely go in. Now we're able to level as well, so no reason to drop anything for the moment. Getting that Void Staff was well going to be transitioning that onto the Riven, so she just has a little bit of that of attack speed, and it's going to be a little bit more AP than the Morellos itself as well. Simply more concentrated power into your carries against Darth Noob, with who has made it to Gen 2, so his game plan still managed to work out by hitting in this very strong Gen 2, but we're able to pick up the win and could have been called just a dragon diff. So the dragon has already secured us a top 2. Now we find the Shen, so we're completely fine to be dropping the Poppy. Obviously on level 8 you might have considered keeping the Poppy since you wanted the Bastion, but on level 9 you're quite secure to eventually find that Shen, so we are keeping that. Trying to position in a way so that this Rammus drives absolute must aggro and hopefully holds off the E and he does not make it to our backline. Thankfully he had a full stack to move, and we just simply had a few units to move and we are fine. And we are able to get through since we have that so much power, so now we're going to be chipping into the Arctic's HP. Should be at least 2 or 3 more fights. Simply have to be watching out for the positioning so we do not get wrapped on. Able to pick up a Shen pair. And the Shen 2 comes online. That's a massive hit for ourselves, simply having more frontline. So we are just going to be sticking with our guts with what we have right now. Corky's possibility to fly away. Just moving a single unit through the Rammus is going to be quite sufficient. Now this Yi thankfully dashed in some form of Narnia and didn't get exactly onto our Bard. The C unit sometimes moves very weirdly, but it's coming close to 1-1-1 and the Bard cast does pop off. Perhaps, well, since we're not running counter with yet, definitely can see why you would be wanting a mana item on him right now. Getting another item, going to be going with a QSSS guess, and yeah, simply transitioning the utility onto the Shen since he's able to apply it quite well, and he utilizes that AP, again making sure our Rammus is completely in front of their stack. They have a lot of units to move, we can just hover scout and move 1. The Riven has managed to get quite decent, but the Yi gets on our backline and retargets. Yesterday even Vasion Iverson, he said he doesn't understand how this Riven Yi unit moves, but I know for sure that with the Bruiser emblem he's quite strong nonetheless. Doesn't matter what the hell he's doing, but we are able to pick up these wins, and we are simply, even though they have a Fiora too and they have 6 Brawler brought from themselves, extremely strong of a board they put together, we can just see how even though we're capping around only a couple of 5 costs, our board is very strong, able to go up against the strongest of the meta comps, and we're able to pick up a win. Greatly played game by Shoma here right now. Identifying that we have the spot, we do not have a clear direction to go for this auto farming, we have decent potential to be playing for a strong opener. Allowing to hold back on our item slams by not simply blinding slamming them, but seeing which players we are playing, which enabled us to be making a better itemization for that late game. Managed to stabilize on a low gold, identified when we need to roll by looking at the matchups, picked up the items, made it to our Bard, were able to stabilize and then make our way to the max cap, where we simply had to ensure that we are positioning this Rammus right in front of their whole stack all the time. This is was the identified as a key, and then the dragon obviously came on the top of the cherry. I would like to thank you for watching. I hope that you learned something new. All the links are available in the description down below, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a good one.